Wisp Sports Radio, the voice of women in sport.
Kia ora, I'm Zoe George and welcome to the September episode of Fair Play, a podcast covering women in sport, from athletes and results to current affairs and issues. This month, we start looking towards the ICC Women's T20 competition with Sophie Devine. We chat with former Silver Fern turned rising journalist Courtney Tairi about the Youth Olympics, and of course we bring you the latest update on the Basin Reserve toilets, a topic it seems many of you are quite interested in. If you want to join the conversation, you can at RNZ, at Wisp Sports, and at producer_Zoe. And don't forget, if you want to get your podcast fix, you can find more at rnz.co.nz. My favourite is Bang, which has just been announced as a finalist for a major international media award. And if you want more sport, wispsports.com is the place to go. Everything from sailing to soccer. We have a global audience of 2 million in 65 countries. Whew, let's get on with the show. Meet today's co-host, newly appointed Women in Sport Aotearoa CEO Rachel Froggatt. She has a wide range of experience spanning international and local sport, media and charity sectors. She's dabbled in Formula One, athletics, rugby, golf, cricket, football and the Paralympics. Kia ora, Rachel. Welcome to Fair Play for the first time.
Kia ora, Zoe. Thank you for having me.
Tell us about you. First of all, what's your favourite sport?
Actually, for nostalgia reasons, and I'll tell you why, I'm actually going to pick Formula One on this one because Formula One was my first true experience working in sport, and I was about 21, maybe 22, fresh out of university, really starting to get into the job space, and I went to the Melbourne Grand Prix for the first time. And I still remember standing on the bank, and it was free practice on race day, and Michael Schumacher came shooting out of the pit lane in his bright red Ferrari, and it was the year of the V10 engine, so the engine sound just went right through you as a spectator. And I just remember all the hairs on my arms raising and just completely and utterly falling head over heels for that big ticket sport experience.
What's it like for women in Formula One? Because there aren't any Formula One female drivers, is there?
There aren't any competing on the Formula One circuit at the moment, but there have been a number of test drivers in recent years, probably the most famous of which is Susie Wolff, who was the permanent test driver for the Williams Formula One team for a number of years, actually. But I'll be really honest with you, Formula One is not a welcoming environment typically for female in sport. The first advent of the first ever Formula One team principal was with Force India a few seasons ago, Monica Kaltenborn, and I was still in Formula One at the time, and I remember the challenges that she faced as she stepped into that leadership role.
How can we then encourage more women into this sport? I mean, yes, it's a very masculine sport, male-dominated, but there's got to be a way to get more women into Formula One.
Yeah, and it is happening, and the systems are breaking down. I think the changing of the guard a couple of years ago, and I don't mean this in the... Bernie Ecclestone did an amazing amount for Formula One, but his ideas about gender and gender inclusion were perhaps not the most modern. And him moving on from the sport has certainly broken it open, and we've seen a lot of changes. For example, the pit girls are gone, finally, the grid girls, which, for a lot of women working in the sport was quite a challenging thing to be faced with every day as you were going about your work. And I was actually very lucky working for a couple of years with the Ferrari Formula One team within the Shell sponsorship, and the head of the technical development program for Shell was actually a young female engineer, and she was an amazing role model for what women could achieve in the engineering side of Formula One. So you are seeing those personalities coming through now, you are seeing those strong leaders starting to come through, and I think that the change of leadership at the top, to be really honest, in the governance is what's seeing that happen.
Well, you are a leader here in New Zealand with Women in Sport Aotearoa. You became CEO just over a month ago. Congratulations.
Yep. Thank you.
What have you learnt so far?
Actually, It's been really eye-opening for a couple of reasons. I think the first one was, I certainly, when I first put myself forward for the role, was very aware that there was a growing momentum in this space. And I've actually spent the last 4 years with Paralympics New Zealand working on developing the profile and the commercial operations of our New Zealand Paralympic team. And I had been aware in the diversity and inclusion space of this growing momentum. But the day I sort of stepped into the role, suddenly the floodgates just opened, and the amount of people that I have met who have reached out to me, have introduced themselves, have offered help, assistance has been really incredible. And I think there's a lot of willingness and passion within the sector for this movement. I think the other thing that has really struck me has been the amount of stories I've heard in the last 4 weeks, and you don't have to scratch very far below the surface before that really opens up. And two that really stood out for me in the last couple of weeks was a very, actually quite a sad story, I thought, about an ex-professional female athlete, New Zealand athlete, who had been 10 years at the top of her game. Had coaching qualifications, several years of coaching experience under her belt, and has been trying for 2 years to get a permanent coaching position at any level within her sport, and has been turned down time and time and time again. And she's actually just given up. She's actually moved out of sport completely and is going in a new direction. But the other one was actually a man who approached me actually last week and asked me, was I the new Chief Executive of Women in Sport Aotearoa? And yes, I was. And he said to me, you need to fix things. And I said, I'm sorry, what do you mean? And he says, well, my 13-year-old daughter came home on the weekend and told me she was pulling out of her mixed basketball team, which she's very, very passionate about. And I said, well, why is she doing that? She said, because she's made to feel so unwelcome by the coaching system, the venue set up, and even some of the boys within that team, that she actually feels that she can't continue, she doesn't enjoy it anymore. And I thought that's just, again, it's just such a sad story. And so there are women and men and girls and boys across the whole of New Zealand at the moment that are seeing this, hearing this, experiencing this, and there's a real feeling, and men and women alike are saying this, it's just wrong. It's just wrong at the moment what's happening for our women and girls in sport.
Well, luckily, Whisper has been established now for just over a year, and we've got you leading the charge, which is fantastic.
Indeed.
Rachel Froggatt is our guest today. She's the newly appointed CEO of Women in Sport Aotearoa. Now, we'll talk a little bit about that later on, but first, on to my favourite subject. Well, toilets, that's later on in the show, but cricket is my favourite subject. Recently, the White Ferns went into camp to prepare for the upcoming ICC Women's T20 in the West Indies in November. They gathered in Lincoln and are now in Australia having a few warm-up matches against our trans-Tasman rivals, and actually they're not doing too bad. Before she jumped on a plane, I was able to catch up with Sophie Devine about what we should expect for the build-up to the competition, but I started by congratulating her on being a Woman of the Year finalist alongside other incredible women doing things in sport, including Black Ferns Sevens captain Sarah Goss, sports researcher Sarah Lieberman, who I know is part of Women in Sport Aotearoa and is a regular here on Fair Play, Tall Fern Natalie Taylor, and New Zealand Rugby League's Luisa Awhaki.
Yeah, cheers, thank you. It's pretty humbling to be even nominated, and the fact to get through is pretty awesome. To have a look at the list of other nominees, it's I had a look the other day and I was like, geez, I actually don't know what I'm doing there, but no, it's awesome to be recognised, and like I said, really humbled to be amongst some pretty special females.
You've just completed the camp with the White Ferns. How did that go?
Yeah, it was really good. Look, it was fantastic. We were down at Lincoln. To be outside on grass in September is pretty good for New Zealand conditions. So we managed to fit in 3 T20 warm-up games, which was fantastic, just sort of into squad matches, which sort of gave the group a really good chance to get outside. Obviously, a lot of us have been, well, not me personally, but a lot of us have been stuck indoors, so it was good to get out on grass and have some really close games. I think every game went down to the last over, or was a couple of runs in it. So I think that was, it was good to put the side under pressure.
There's been a change of leadership as well, with Amy Satterthwaite now being the captain. What does she bring to this role?
Oh, look, I think Branch is really well experienced, not only, I guess, in the side, but in captaincy as well. She's obviously done a lot with the Canterbury Magician side and the domestic competition. She's done it over in Australia with the Melbourne Renegades. So, look, she knows what she's doing. She is very experienced. I think the thing about Branchy or Amy is that she's very thorough. She prepares herself well, and she'll be the first to say that she loves stats. So she'll be the first one to look on a computer and I guess do the scouting on opposition and on us as well, which I think will come in real value to the side in terms of making sure that we're as best prepared as possible.
Was it a shock that Susie stepped down from this, or was this kind of expected from the team?
Yeah, look, I think it is a little bit of a shock. I think, as Susie said, is that, she just wants to get out there and she just wants to play and perform. She feels like her performance has probably dropped away a little bit with everything that's been going on that comes with captaincy. It's been really hard work for her, but she's done a fantastic job, and I know that she's looking forward to getting out with the team and just being one of the girls, and most importantly, I think getting out on the boundary. I think that was the biggest thing she missed about being captain, was she was sort of stuck in the inner ring. So she's looking forward to running around and getting stuck in.
And what does that mean for the rest of the structure, for the leadership within the White Ferns? Does that mean that a few more people are going to have more opportunities to step up?
I think at this stage what's been spoken about is that it's just going to let Amy settle into the role a little bit. Obviously we've got Australia coming up, so I think she's just going to find her feet a little bit, and we're sort of going to work away at that and what that looks like. I think there's no real rush to push that through, so we're just going to let Amy settle into her role, and obviously there's a lot of senior leaders in the group, so I think she's always got plenty of ears to lean on.
We're chatting with White Ferns Sophie Devine, who is also a co-host here at Fair Play. You're heading off to Australia for some pre-tournament games. What are you expecting from these games against Australia?
Oh, look, I think any time that you mention New Zealand and Australia in the same sentence, it usually brings up a fair few emotions. So for us, we're really looking forward to taking on the Aussies. It's obviously perfect timing with the World T20 taking place over in the West Indies not long after our games against them, so it's perfect for us to get in there and get some really high-quality matches against, obviously, an Australian side that's wanting to take us down. We've had a fantastic record against them in T20, so we'll certainly be looking to maintain that.
Yeah, they're also in your pool for the ICC Women's World T20, which is happening in November. You kind of have a bit of a pool of death, don't you? You've got Australia, India, Pakistan and Ireland. What are you looking for regarding that pool and where you want to finish?
I think in tournaments like this, and especially, there always seems to be a pool of death or a pool that looks a little bit harder than another. I think for us it's just about focusing on our own performances and our plans and making sure if we execute that, we'll get the wins, we'll get the points that we need to move through. But I think it's really important that we take one game at a time. It's not just Australia or Pakistan or Ireland. It's making sure every game that we come up against that we're as best prepared as possible. I think as soon as you start to look too far ahead in those sort of competitions is usually when you trip up. So, yeah, look, we know that we've got a tough pool, but likewise, so does the other pool. So we know that, we're going to have to play really well, especially over in West Indies. It's probably not too conditions that we're too familiar with, but that's part of the challenge of playing international cricket, is you've got to be able to adapt, and the side that wins these competitions are usually the sides that adapt best.
Who are your top picks, other than the White Ferns, of course, but the top four? Who do you think the top four are when it comes to best teams?
Yeah, look, I think it's a tough one because the game just keeps growing. I think obviously we saw India were in the 50 over World Cup final last year, which is great. Not just, I guess, New Zealand, Australia and England anymore. And West Indies at home, I think they're going to be a real threat. Anytime you have a home advantage, it's going to be a massive bonus. So I think they'll definitely be in that top four, us, obviously. And then, look, I'd probably say Australia and England just because they are so strong and the way the game's been going. Obviously, we had a really hard series against the English and the South Africans as well earlier this year. But then again, you look at India and they've had some massive performances against top sides. So I think, like I said before, it's a bit cliche, but anyone can win it, and I think that's a really exciting thing.
Well, Australia and England also, though, they're professional, aren't they? So they have been given lots of resources to be able to compete and play and practice at this elite level. So it wouldn't be surprising if they made it through to the finals? Yeah,
look, I think we've known that now for a couple of years that Australia and England have put massive resources into their women's program. It's been fantastic for them and for other countries as well. Obviously, their domestic programs are looking really strong, and it gives players like myself the opportunity to go over and play in their T20 competitions in particular, which is a real added bonus. But I think, you don't have to be paid professionally to be considered a professional. I think the way we train is really important, and there's lots of sides that have different circumstances. I guess obviously we're probably not as financially rewarded as some of these other countries, but it doesn't mean that we can't go out and really put our best foot forward on the park.
That was White Ferns' Sophie Devine. The White Ferns have their first warm-up match for the ICC Women's T20 competition on Monday, November 5th, New Zealand time, against Sri Lanka. Their first round game is against India on Saturday, November 10th. And I'm pleased to announce, Rachel Froggatt, who's my co-host, the newly appointed Women in Sport Aotearoa CEO, that I'm going to be co-hosting a special podcast following the White Ferns as they chase the silverware throughout November. It's called Not Your Average Cricket Show.
Absolutely brilliant. Love it.
And that's exactly what it is. And we'll be bringing you great co-hosts, interesting insights, game analysis, cricket history, celebrating the champions of the game, and of course, lots of cricket puns. You've worked in cricket, haven't you? You've been part of cricket.
I have. I did about a year actually in T20 cricket, working for the Oval in London.
Love it.
A few years ago now, but it was actually a really fascinating brief because they were playing summer T20 in the evenings at the Oval and really struggling to fill the stands. Actually, they were having an issue with getting enough people to come after work to actually engage with the sport, and we worked on a concept which we deployed was where each game had a theme around it, and we targeted a certain audience group to come along and have a kind of festival environment. So one game had a family theme, for example, another was a dress-up theme, another was a dating game, and there were a whole number of different themes that we did, and we actually managed to drive it. They were typically getting around 5,000 people coming along to the games. By the end of the season, they were routinely getting sort of 15,000, 16,000
wow.
in an evening game after work. So, it was a fantastic experience actually.
What do you think is the biggest challenge about facing women in a sport like cricket?
Do you know what? Cricket for me is something I've been following this in New Zealand for a couple of years, obviously, because you'll recall Sarah Beeman releasing her independent Women in Cricket report a couple of years ago, and I found that firstly not particularly surprising, but equally really horrifying because some of the stats that fell out of that, around 90% of cricket clubs don't have female-only teams, 60% of them don't offer cricket for females at all, was, in 2016 when this report came out, it's just like, is this still happening? I don't understand this. Like, why are we not able to see that this system is not supporting, equity for men and women? So for me, I think the biggest challenge, and it's actually quite indicative, I think, of women's sport across the board, is that without the female voice in leadership, so within governance or within senior leadership teams, the female element of the sport just doesn't get the attention and support, that it deserves. And I heard a fantastic quote the other day, actually, from the co-chair of the International Working Group on Women in Sport from Botswana. And she said, the reality is that if you're not sitting at the table, you're on the menu.
That is so true.
And very insightful. And I laughed and thought, brilliant example of exactly what is happening, unfortunately, in a number of sports.
If you're not sitting on the table, you're on the menu.
Exactly.
Wow. That's really good. We like that. You just talked about the International Working Group of Women in Sport. So this has been handed over from Botswana to New Zealand, I understand. And so for the next 4 years, we're kind of running the show. What is it and what does it involve?
Yeah, well, this is where things become really interesting for New Zealand. So, as you say, Women in Sport Aotearoa has been set up for just over a year now as the domestic advocacy and research agency. So, really looking at driving change for women and girls across the spectrum. So, participation, competition, coaching, leadership, governance, media, etc. But because of the, credibility and structure and systems behind Women in Sport Aotearoa, we were able to pitch on the international national stage with support of New Zealand government, so the Minister for Sport and Recreation, Grant Robertson, plus AT, New Zealand Tourism and New Zealand Olympic Committee for the hosting rights for the International Working Group on Women and Sport. And this is the world's largest international network of experts working every day for equity for women and girls across all echelons of sport. And it actually celebrates its 25th anniversary next year as a movement, and its origins are actually in New Zealand. So some of the original founding members include Kieran Smith, for example, who is the NZOC chief executive. And so it's actually coming home in a funny sort of way, which is actually really, really nice. And so we're actually responsible from, as of actually 7 days ago officially, the Secretariat and the conference. And the Secretariat basically means we hold all administrative rights for the next 4 years. And we're responsible for delivering the IWG strategic plan globally, supporting the global governing board, but also stewardship of the members and the organisations that have signed up to the Brighton Declaration for the Rights of Women and Girls in Sport, which is a foundation document that has over 600 signatories, including UN Women, UNESCO, the IOC, the International Paralympic Committee, FIFA, etc. So all of the largest international organisations. But we're also responsible for our relationships with United Nations and with UNESCO generally, who are two of our largest kind of partnering bodies. So our IWG co-chair from New Zealand, Raewyn Lovett, will be very prominent on the international stage over the next 4 years, really pushing that agenda and positioning New Zealand really as a very progressive nation. You know, a couple of days ago, Jacinda Ardern talked about this herself. You probably saw the interview she did with Christine Amanpour from CNN, where she was challenged on New Zealand's ideas about gender and sexism in the workplace. And she very vehemently defended New Zealand as a progressive nation. And it's something that we ourselves think is an amazing opportunity with IWG to really push that on the international stage.
What are the goals for this time around? You've got 4 years, so what are some of the achievements that you're hoping to reach?
Yeah, well, in 4 years' time, we actually host the IWG conference in Auckland, and this is the world's most respected conference in women and girls in sport. It typically attracts around 1,400 kind of key influencers and movers and shakers from government, media, business, academia, into one central place. And I really feel like this is a giant report card. You know, New Zealand's got to, not only do we have to put on a fantastic conference, we have to stand up and say we've made real positive change in New Zealand. We've seen systemic change, environmental change, cultural change. Our women and girls have moved dramatically in the last 4 years. But also the other side of that is, well, how do we take the values and the ideals that New Zealanders hold dear about equality onto the global stage and help those organisations that are making, you know, big moves in this space? IOC and FIFA in particular have very aggressive strategies in this space to be as successful as they possibly can be to make sure that it's equitable.
Rachel Froggatt is our co-host today. Women in Sport Aotearoa CEO, newly appointed. Shortly we're going to be talking to Courtney Tairi about the Youth Olympics. In New Zealand, Rachel, are we quite supportive of women in sport?
Do you know that's a
Tough
multi-layered question.
I know, it's a tough one.
It's a multi-layered question. I think that on the whole there is an enormous amount of support, but it's what I've kind of termed armchair support. So if you asked, you know, a man or a woman sitting in their armchair in their living room, you know, do you support women's sport? Of course I do. Of course I do. But where the problems are coming in is those armchair supporters aren't actually doing anything about that. So they're not changing channel and watching women's sport necessarily on TV. They're not getting up and going to a venue and watching it. They're not necessarily involving their daughters or their nieces in participatory sport. They're not actually taking any action. And I think we need to turn that real positive feeling and level of engagement with women's sport into real tangible outputs. And that's what I think Women in Sport Aotearoa is really well positioned to do over the next few years.
All right, well, let's move on to the next topic. The 2018 Summer Youth Olympics is fast approaching. This year it's being held in Buenos Aires, Argentina, starting on October 6. There are 241 events in 32 sports, and it's the first time the Youth Games have been held outside of Eurasia. New Zealand has a 60-strong team representing us in archery, athletics, badminton, basketball, beach volleyball, boxing, canoe and kayaking, cycling, show jumping, golf, gymnastics, judo, karate, rugby sevens, climbing, swimming, table tennis, triathlon, weightlifting, wrestling and yachting. Whew, that's a lot.
Say that 10 times fast.
I feel like I need a cup of tea and a lie down after that one. Former Silver Fern Courtney Tairi has stepped off the court and in front of the camera, and she'll be on the ground in Buenos Aires covering all the successes for the Kiwi athletes. She joins us now. Kia ora, Courtney.
Kia ora, good morning.
So you're heading off to the Youth Olympics next week. Who should we keep an eye out for?
Yes, heading over to Argentina, so I'm very excited. I'm excited to see Jessie Smith in the BMX, women's BMX. So she's a young, exciting athlete that we have. So she is someone that I'm really looking forward to, and she's one of our first events happening over there. Then also in table tennis, Nathan Zhu, I'm really looking forward to seeing some table tennis, which is a bit out of my norm. So they're two that I'm really excited to see. And then there's also like speed climbing, boulder climbing that's happening, which will be coming in Tokyo 2020. So I'm also excited to get along and see how that will go down. And we've got some athletes in that. One of our females is there, Tetzlis. So I'm excited to see how the whole rock climbing, speed climbing works and how it will work in an Olympic environment for the future.
Yeah, that would be really fascinating. What do you think that our medal chances are for this?
For us, I would definitely have to say the sevens. So
come on, it's in our blood, right?
Exactly, but we're not sending a male team, only sending a female team. So they're all ready and raring to go. They've been training a lot down in Hamilton. So for me, I definitely have to say, I know we're a rugby nation, so the sevens, definitely.
You're making quite a name for yourself covering lots of different sports. What made you want to step away from netball? I mean, I know that you had quite a severe injury a couple of years ago, and then step into sports reporting. Yeah,
for me, I always did, I got to do a little bit of sports reporting here and there while I played netball, and then as I've gotten older and my injuries have sort of taken their toll on my body, I think just came a time where it's just, I figured, it's time to step away from the game, and I probably wasn't enjoying it as much as I could, and my body wasn't recovering as well as it used to. So, I was very fortunate enough to pick up some work with Sky Sport, which I've absolutely loved.
Now, before we let you go, can we talk about the Silver Ferns briefly?
Yes, let's do it.
As you know, there's a new captain and a new coach. What are your thoughts on those selections?
Amazing, fantastic. It should have been there from the start. So I'm glad that now we've probably lost 18 months of time, but I'm glad that now the right people are in the right places and that we can go forward from here. So, when they played the quad series, they only had a week together. So hopefully now they can get some more time under their belt with the whole squad, and then we can just keep progressing nicely. And the last game, we only lost to Australia by 5 points, which is very good. So we'll take that and we'll just keep building from here. But I'm very happy to see Laura back in there, and I think she should have always been there. Yeah.
Can we win the World Cup? It's coming up next year, isn't it?
It is. It's coming up next year. It's in Liverpool. So for England, that's on home ground as well. They're going to be very, very hard to beat and very hard to beat over there. Can we win it? I'm not sure. Can we get a medal, though? Yes.
Okay, so, that sounds like an achievable goal, right? What do you reckon, Rachel?
Oh, absolutely. Courtney, hi, it's Rachel here. I'm listening to this with quite a lot of fascination, actually, because Zoe and myself were just having a chat about what it's like to be a female in the sports media, and I was just thinking to myself, you've now seen it from both sides of the camera. So I wondered actually if you had an example of, something that maybe happened to you or you observed when you were an athlete that you had, has become a bit of a guiding principle for you in terms of how you now treat female athletes going forward.
My biggest thing, I think, is, I guess, when you do interviews as an athlete and stuff like that, especially print interviews, and your full answers might not be given or might not be printed and stuff like that. So you always want to be honest as an athlete, and you give that, and then what then gets portrayed of you doesn't necessarily come out how the interview actually did go. So my biggest one, I think, is not just for female but for all athletes, is just me now being on the other side. It's just doing the best to represent the athlete and how honest they are with you, and just not misrepresenting them, because I know that a long time ago I just stopped reading what was written about me or interviews that I gave because they just took bits and pieces. So for me, it's just getting that trust from athletes that they can just be honest with you and you will represent them and they will come across how they want to come across and not how, I guess, the media can sort of portray them or how things can get a little twisted along the way. So, yeah, for me, it's just, I know it's not just women specifically, but for all athletes, I just want them to be able to trust and that we will portray them in the right light.
That was sports reporter Courtney Tairi, who is off to report on the Youth Olympics in Buenos Aires next week. Well, it's almost time to say goodbye, but before we head off, it's that time again. The update on the Basin Reserve toilets. Rachel, have you heard about what's going on there?
I have. It's disgraceful.
Yeah, I tell you what, so many people are connecting with me on this issue, and it's something that seems to be very important to those who care about sport. For those who are new to the conversation, we've been talking about the state of the toilet facilities at the Basin Reserve for the past 9 months. Yes, really. Long story short, they're in a bit of disarray, with approximately twice as many toilets accessible to men than women, with a very small number of facilities available to families and those with accessibility needs. Some people, mainly women, at games are waiting up to 25 minutes to use toilets. A few months ago, the Wellington City Council announced a $7 million investment in the refurbishment and earthquake strengthening of the museum stand. The council said they will not be holding any public consultation regarding the redesign of the toilets, but project manager for the council, Warwick Hayes, says there will be a, quote, rebalancing of the number of toilets. The latest is, well, not much for this month. He says the museum stand is looking pretty grubby, but initial strengthening design work is underway. He will not allow fair play access to the designers as they are answerable to the council, but the council's answerable to their stakeholders. And who are the council stakeholders? Ratepayers, that's who. So if you want to have your say, I want to hear it at producer_Zoe, at RNZ and at Wisp Sports. And I will bring you another update next episode. You must have had some experience with toilets at sporting facilities, Rachel.
Oh, God. I think they're probably the most disgusting things on the planet, regardless of what sport you're actually attending. But I actually was thinking about this, and there is a story I can tell if we have time.
Yeah.
About my own personal experience of a international sporting toilet, as you might call it. So I used to work in Formula One, as we talked about, and those who are Formula One aficionados will know that the kind of heart and soul of Formula One is the paddock, and that's where the team motorhomes are all based, and that's where you have to be a very sort of special individual to get a pass to go into this environment. And I had a pass one day which allowed me in there, and I thought, went into the Mercedes motorhome who I was working with at the time and thought, oh gosh, I must use the bathroom. And these motorhomes are a little bit like aeroplanes, everything is tiny, and everything is packaged. And I, went into the bathroom, went to leave the bathroom, and as I went out, there was a little lip at the bottom of the door, which I, being quite clumsy, tripped on, sort of slammed the door from the inside, so it went flying outwards into the central part of the motorhome, and I heard this massive clunk where it clearly hit somebody with, my full weight behind it, and I sort of straightened myself up to find myself face to face with world champion Lewis Hamilton, who was not overly impressed with my acrobatics. But I still got friends who bring this up and laugh at me on a regular occurrence about this one. But yeah, I think I dropped through the floor. It was so embarrassing.
Oh, that is a great story. That's a great, great story. Rachel, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. We hope that you can come back and be part of our ongoing continued coverage here at Fair Play. We wish you all the very best for your new role at the Women in Sport Aotearoa, CEO role. It's very exciting. And also I want to say thanks to our guests today, Sophie Devine and Courtney Tairi, and of course, Rachel Froggatt. You're amazing. Thank you so much for being a guiding light. What does October look like for you?
October's actually a bit of a monster for me because last week the Botswana delegation was in Auckland to officially hand over the International Working Group on Women in Sport to New Zealand, and we now have the full picture. So we know what that scope of work looks like. So October is a massive month of strategic planning, replanning, rethinking, resourcing, and working out exactly how New Zealand's going to have, the kind of impact we want to have on the international stage.
Sounds very busy and fabulous. Keep up the good work. I'm going to be busy prepping my new cricket podcast, which is going to be great fun. But I will let you, the audience, know how you can be involved with this podcast closer to the time.
Conversations from the world of women's sports. This is Wisp Sports Radio.
And that's it for Fair Play for September. Catch you next month. I'm Zoe George. Don't forget to play hard, but play fair.